So in this video, we're going to start working on the materials. Now, before we start working on any materials, I just want to emphasize what material is. So basically, when we see any object and how the light interacts with an object, we will be able to see the color of the object. We would be able to see the texture, the reflection, any opacity. All of these criterias makes material. So basically, this is what we're going to try to do. Now, in order to work with the material, we have to open the material editor, which you can find either here. So this is the material editor button, or you can just go to rendering and then material editor. And the shortcut for the material editor is M, so you can press M on your keyboard and it will open it for you. Or if you just come here, you will find that we have two types of material editor. We have the compact material editor, which looks something like this. And then we have the slate material editor. And I can switch between both of them by clicking on mode and then change to the other type. So basically in this course, we're going to use Slate Material Editor just to make everything clear. But basically the both editors are the same exact function. They have the same exact function. The only difference is in how you are viewing the materials. Okay, so this is the Slate Material Editor, and in here we have these menus here at the top, and then we have some buttons here which we're going to use in a second, and then we have the material browser which is here on the side. From here you can add materials, you can add maps and some other things. So basically if I click on material, it will show me the types of materials that we have in here. So we have some general materials, scanline. I have V-Ray installed, so I have V-Ray, and we are working on Corona, so we have Corona as well in here. So if I click on this plus sign, it will show me a list of all the materials that are available. Now, for this semester, we're just introducing the Corona physical material. So I'll just double click on it and it will add it to the viewer here or the view area here. So here I'm going to add any material that I have. So if I want to add another one, I'll double click on it and it will be added here. And I can move, I can move these materials all around. So let's say I've added a bit more. So maybe I'll just add another one in here. Okay, and maybe I'll just press on Shift and then I'm going to move it to create a copy. So let's say I have these materials and then maybe I'm going to create some more. So basically, when you are working on a project, you're going to create more than one material. You're going to create maybe 10, 20, whatever number you have. So at the end, you're going to have many materials and you will have to zoom in and work on each one to see the effect of the material, how it looks like. So you can double click on this sphere to see it, and you can select the material and change all the settings from here. But basically, if you want to move around, you can use this navigator here on this side, where you can just move this gray box on any side you want, and it will just show you the material, which is basically an easy way to move between all your categories. So maybe you will have all the wood materials on one side, all the marble on one side, other materials, for example, wool paints and so on. So you can categorize your materials as you like, and then you can just move between them depending on what you want. Okay, so this is basically what you're going to do. Now, when you select any material, it will show you all the settings that you can change in here. So I can change the name, for example. So let's say I'll rename it to glass. I can use some presets. So we have some ready presets that we can use from here. And we can change all the other settings. So for example, I can change the color. So it will change it to something like this. As I said in the beginning of this video, we're not going to go through all these um, options. What we're going to cover is only the presets and the colors, and then I'll show you how to get some ready materials and apply them to your scene. Okay, so this is basically what we're going to do. Now, for me, because this window is big and sometimes it will take uh, a lot of space from my screen, I prefer to close the material browser. So you can close it and open it from here. So if I click on material and map browser, I can close it and then I can open it. So I prefer to close it. And then we have the parameter editor, which is the one here, which will give us all the settings. And I prefer to just move it up as much as possible. And then I'm going to make this one a bit smaller as well. Okay, so now I have more from my screen showing, so I can use it and so on. So let's start adding a material. Now, because I've hidden this material map browser, I need another way to get a new material. So basically, if I want to get a material, I just right click here in any empty area, and it will give me the same exact list that we had. So I'll go to material and then Corona, and we're going to use the Corona physical material. Okay. So I'll click on it, it will create a new material. Now for this material, I will double click here to see the sphere itself, and I'm going to change the name from here. So let's say this is metal, whatever material you're going to create. Make sure to rename your materials in order to know what you are doing. So basically, if I want this to be gold, I'll just go here to color and I'll change the color to something that is a bit resembles gold color, whichever the color is. Okay, so let's say this is the color of my material. Now, gold is not only a color. You need reflection, you need refraction, you need reflection, you need metalness, and so on. As I told you, we're not going to go through all these settings. So basically, if you want to change the color of the material, you can click on color in here. Otherwise, you can select one of the ready presets. So this is the first way of creating a material. You can create a Corona physical material and then you can apply a preset to it. So these are the presets that we have. When you select any one of them, it will automatically change all the settings that you need in order to get the material that is here. So if I click here on Chrome, it will change the material. Okay, it will change the material to chrome. And if you want to change the color, you can basically click on the color and change it. If I select, for example, gold yellow, it's going to give me the setting. And if you want to change the color to something else, again, you can change it and it will affect your metal. So you can select any one of these presets. Let's say I want to use velvet. I'll select velvet from here. Then click on OK. Then if I want to change the color, I'm just going to change it from here. So let's say I'll go with something like this. So this is the material that I have right now. Now, how to apply this material to an object that you already have? Let's say I want to apply this material to this puff. So basically I have two options. The first one is to drag this material from this point. So I can click on this point and drag it until I reach my object and it will apply it. The second way is I'll have to select my object. So if I click here on this object now, what's happening is it is selecting the whole group. So I'll have to go to group and then open or open recursively, select the object, select the material, and then assign material to selection. Okay, now it's already assigned, so let's try another object. Let's say I'll add it to this one. So I will select my object first, then I'll go here to assign material to selection. So it will apply it to my selection. Okay, so let's repeat. First of all, right-click, materials, Corona, and then Corona physical material. Next, I'm going to go and change this preset from here. So maybe I'll use the gold brushed, which will give me this result. And if I want to change the color, I can basically click here and then change it to any other color that I want. Now to apply this material, I can click here and then drag it to this object. Okay. Let's say I want to do the same thing, the same colors for this object. Now, if I drag this material to the legs here, you will notice that it will apply it to everything, the whole object. Because these are not separate objects and they are grouped together. No, this is one object only. If I go to group, there is nothing because this is not a group. This is one object, one editable mesh, and sometimes it would be editable poly. So basically, it's the same thing for this point that we're talking about. So if you want to apply a material to part of the object, so let's say now I've already applied this material to the legs, but I want to change the top part and keep it as fabric. So in order to do so, if you want to change part of an object, you need to first of all go to the level that you want. Do I want to go to polygon and select the polygons, or do I want to go to element? So for this case, I need to go to element, select this one, control this one, and then select the material, and then assign material to selection. Okay, so it will give me this result. Again, I will need to select all the things that I want and then assign. So now I have this result. Okay, so this is basically the first way of adding or creating a material. The second way to create a material is to right-click on materials, again, general physical material. Then you can change the preset, sorry, not physical material, let me just delete this one. Right-click, materials, Corona, and then Corona physical material, because we're working with Corona. And then I'm going to change the preset to, let's say, velvet. Okay, so now I have this result. But I don't want to change the color. I don't want to add a color. I want to add a pattern. In this case, I'll have to go and search for a pattern. So let's just open Google search. And then I'm going to search for, let's say, pattern. But make sure to always add the word seamless at the beginning. When you're searching for a pattern or for a wood image or for any other image, just make sure that you add the word seamless in order to not see the cutout of the image because the image will be copied multiple times on the object to cover it. So if it's not seamless, you will see where the image ends or where it starts, which will make it very fake. It will not be realistic. So let's say I'm going to take, let's try this one. So I'll go here, try to save it and check if this is a JPG image. Since this is a JPG image, then I can use it. And always make sure to save it in the folder that you're working in. So always have a folder, name it maps or materials, okay, depending on what you prefer, and then save your image in. Now, because I'm using an image and I want to add this image here to the color, basically I need to link the material with a map. Okay, so in order to do so, I'll right click and then instead of materials, I'll go to maps. From maps, again, we have categories and we're going to go to Corona. And I'm going to use a map called Corona Bitmap. Now, what does this map does? It basically brings an image from your device. So if I click on Corona Bitmap, it will open this window for me where I can go back and select the image that I saved. So I'll go to practice and then materials, and then I have this image, and then I will click on open. So this is the image now, it is available here, and I'm going to link this map to the color and the material. So I'm going to change the material to the image that I have. Okay, so basically any map that we add, we can link it to any of these options for this material. So we have an option for color, we have an option, for example, for edge color, we have option for metalness, for translucency, self-illumination, opacity, many other options. We're not going to go through details for now, but you just need to know that whenever you're adding a map, you can connect it to any of these options. Okay, and now when I click on the material again, you will see that the color here, it has the letter M on this side, which means it's not using the color anymore. It is using the map that is linked to the color option in here. Now I can drag this. Let's say I'm going to add it to this bed here, to this part. So now it's added, as you can see. Let me just make this standard. Okay, so as you can see now, the map is added to the bed. Okay. Now let's say I want to change the scale of this. Let me just close the material editor for now. Let's say I want to change the scale of the pattern. I don't want it to be this big. I want it to be smaller. In this case, I have to select the object and then go to modifier, list, and add UVW map. If you add this map, you will have the option here to select the type of mapping, and basically I'm going to go with box, so it covers the whole thing. It will give me length, width, and height. Then I will type 500 by 500 by 500. Do you need to always use this number? No. For me, because I want the image to be square, I will make sure that the length, width, and height are the same size. But do I need to do this same number every time? No, you can do whatever number you want because we're going to go here to UVW map, select gizmo, and then we are going to scale up or down depending on what I want. So you can make the pattern bigger or you can make it smaller as you like. Okay, and then you close UVW map. That's it. So let me just take it back to standard. Okay. So let's move on to another way of creating a material. So this is how you can create a material from scratch. But if you want to get some ready materials, you can go here to the Corona bar and then you can open the Corona material library. When you click on it the first time, it will take a bit of time to open. And after it opens, you will find some very good quality materials that you can use for your scene. Okay, so I'm just waiting for it to open. So this is basically how the Corona material library looks. This is the basic hair material, and then we have some other categories. So let's say if I go to wood, I'll find these options. If I go to stone, I'll find some other options and so on. Okay, so these are leather. Now let's say I want to add one of these materials to my scene. Let me just make this smaller. Okay, and I'll close the materials. We have two options. The first option is, let's say I want to change the headboard here and I want to make it leather and I want to use, for example, this type. So you can right click, select the object first, right click and then assign to selected objects. Okay, so basically it will apply this leather to this object. And because it has some images, I need to click here, add UVW map, change this to box, make the numbers all the same, just to make sure that the material is a square or a box. And then you can make it scale it down or scale it up, depending on what you prefer. Okay, so now I have this material added. The other way is you can click on the material editor, you can open it, and then you can drag this material and drop it here. So let's say I'll take this blue one and I will drag it and drop it. As you can see, this is the material now and it has many maps linked to it in order to get this final result. Okay, so this result did not come just from a color or a preset. No, they added all these options here to get this result. Now, what if I want to change the color of the material? We said we can either change the color from here, which is now we cannot do because we have a map. And basically, when you add a map, you can go through the settings of the map to change it. So if I see here, I have Corona Mix, which is mixing many materials. And inside it are many maps. And then inside or linked to it, we have full of here, and Corona Triplanner. And then we have other like outputs and so on until we reach this Corona color. So if I go here to Corona color, I can change the color from here to another color. So basically when you do this, it will change for all the other maps. Do I always will get this Corona color at the end? No. This is not something that it will always be there. It is in this case for this material, but for some other materials, this won't be the case. So let's open again, let's keep this on this side. Let's go to, for example, the wood category. And let's say I want to use, for example, let's say this wood. I'll drag it and drop it here. And as you can see, again, it has some other things. Okay, some other maps. Let me just make this bigger. So if I go to the last one, this is a bitmap. This is the Corona bitmap where we can add images to our material. So in order to change this image, okay, I'll have to save another image. And sometimes if I change this image, you will see that other settings or other maps are not working with your new image. So basically, if you want to change the color, you will have to right click, go to maps, and then you will find here in general, or let's go to Corona since we're working with Corona. You will find Corona color correct, and this will help and correct or change the color of your material. So how can I use this for this material? What I'm going to do is, you see this link from the diffuse color, go to the first or the first link. So basically this is the map that I have. This is the first map. And I'm going to connect it here. Then I'm going to go here to this side and I'm going to connect it to the diffuse color. So basically I put this between the material and the first map that is in the diffuse color. Now when you select the Corona color correct, you can go here and change many options. So let me just double click on this so you can see it. Okay, now I will select the Corona color correct map. And then I will go here, you can change the brightness if you want to change it. Okay, or even if you want to make it darker, it's the same thing. So you can change the brightness. You can change the saturation of the color. You can change the hue of the color, so it will change the color itself to green, blue, pink, whatever, depending on where you are. And then you can change the contrast if you want more contrast or less. And we have again other options that we can use, but for now this is more than enough. So as you can see, the map took the same image and changed its colors. Okay, because I added a Corona correct color. Now let's do this again for this one. Right click, go to maps, Corona, Corona color correct, link the first map here from the diffuse color, link it to the input, and then link the output to the diffuse color. So I have this in between both the material and the first map that is connected to the diffuse color. Now when I go to Corona color correct, I can change the hue here to change the color. Okay, so this basically the hue will change between the rainbow colors. So after the green one, we have blue. After blue, we have a bit of purple and so on. Okay, so you can control it from here. Then again, you can control the saturation, or you can make it less. You can control the contrast. You can control the brightness until you reach the color that you prefer. Now, after editing the material, now I want to apply it somewhere. I'll just drag it and drop it wherever I want. Okay. So this is basically how you can use the Corona material library. You can either select an object and then right-click and assign to selected object, or you can select the material, let's say this one, drag it and drop it in the material editor, change whatever you want to change from here, and then drag it and drop it to your object. Okay, just make sure after you do any of these changes that you close the material editor, close any material library open, and don't forget to add UVW map as we mentioned. So any material with image, you have to click on UVW map box. Let's make it 1 by 1 by 1. And then I will click here on Gizmo and I'll start scaling the material until you see that it looks fine. And then you can rotate it as well if you want to. You can move it if you want to move it, and so on. And you can scale in one axis or both axes, two axes or three, and so on. After you're done, just click Gizmo and go to the UVW map. And make sure not to scale before you open and select the gizmo. If this is closed, if the modifier is closed and you start scaling, it will scale the whole object, not only the material. Okay, so keep this in mind when you are working. Okay. So the third way to get a material and add it to your scene is basically by bringing a block with materials on it. So if you're using Telegram, if you're using websites, if you're using any other way, you can just download any blocks that you have. So for example, I have some blocks here. Let me just show you this. So you can see that I've downloaded a few blocks, and these blocks come with materials. Let me just show you this way. Okay, so I have this one, which has these types of metals, and this is a Corona material. I have this one as well. And I have another one, which is the wood. We've already done the wood part, so let's do these two. So I'll go to this folder, and then I'm going to drag this in here to my scene, merge, and place them wherever I want. So I'll just place them outside. Okay. So if I go now to the material editor, so these are my blocks. If I go to the material editor, I can go to somewhere else, maybe let's say here, and then I will add my metals. So this is the first material, which will give me this result. And as you can see, it's linked to many other maps. Let's try this one as well. So this is going to give me this kind of metal and so on. Now, keep in mind when you're moving your materials, you need to make sure that it moves children as well. So when you click on move children and you move the material, it will move all the maps with it. But if you close this option, it will only move the material, sorry. It will only move the material without the maps. Okay, so always make sure that this option is open. Another option here is you can delete any material that you don't want, or you can just select it and delete it from the keyboard. You can hide any unused node slots. So basically, as you can see, the material, it shows all these settings. So if I click on this, it will hide all the extra ones that we did not use for this material. Okay, so you can select any of them and then you can hide all the extra parts in order to only see the important things or the things that we've used. Another thing here that you can do at the top, you can lay all of them either vertically or horizontally. So if I click on horizontal, it will take all the materials and it will lay them like this horizontally. If I do it vertically, it will be this way. So this is just to make sure to how like you're arranging everything and so on. Okay, and then this layout children, so it will just make sure that everything is neat. So maybe you have some things that are all over each other. So when you click on it, it will just make sure that, let me just select the material. It will make sure that everything looks neat with no issues. Okay, and as we said, this will open the material browser and close it. And this is going to open and close the settings that we have here for the material. Okay. So I've already took the materials that I want. Let me just make sure where they are right now. So I've took this material, for example, and I don't need the block anymore. I can just delete it. خلاص. I have my material in here. Now I'll go to my view. And then I'll drag it and drop it. Let's say I'll assign it to this part and maybe to this one and maybe to the windows as well. So how do we see the texture? How do we see the reflection of the material? How can we test our material? We need to render. So Shift and Q. It's going to open the Corona render frame and it will start rendering. This is where you can see the final result of your material. You cannot judge a material by how it looks in the scene. You need to see it in the render. Is it okay? Does it need fixing? All these things you need to check from here. Okay, so as you can see now, I can see the grains of the wood from here. I can see how it looks with shadows. I can see the texture or the fabric and how it looks and so on. The metal, the reflection of the metal, and all these options, you can see them from the render. Okay, so that's it. This is basically what we're going to introduce into the physical material for this semester. We have two other things that we're going to cover. One material is to add lighting. So, for example, I want to turn this object here into a light, so I can add a material to it. The other option is, or the other material is a slicer material, which basically allow us to render top views or let's say plans, sections, and so on. Okay, so I'll just stop my render for now. I think, yeah, it's stopped. خلاص, I'll close it. Now let's move to the light material. So in order to show you the light material, I'm going to open my floating viewport here and start an interactive render so you can see what is happening. Yeah. So I have this object here, and for this one, let me just make sure that you can see it. Now, for this one, what I want to do is I want to turn this part into a light, but I cannot use any of the Corona lights because the shapes that I have, which are disc, plane, and or rectangle, sphere, and cylinder. But what I have here is an irregular shape, so basically I'll create a light material. So right click, materials, Corona. And for this one, I will not use the physical material. I will go to the Corona light material. Now, when I click on it, it will open this material here, and then I will go and change the color of the light as I wish. So let's say I'll make it something like this. And then I'm going to drag it and drop it on my object. Now, because I'm already selecting a group, when I drag and drop, this is for all materials, it will ask you, do you want to assign it to your selection, to everything that you've selected, or only to the object where your arrow or your mouse is going on? So I'll select object, so it will apply it only to this one. If you want to avoid this, you can basically just remove the selection from your light. Now when I drag and drop, it will not ask anything. So this is the Corona light material. The first option we can choose or we can change from here is color. So you can select your color. The second option is intensity, where you can, if you increase it, it will increase the lighting coming from this object. Okay. We have some light emission settings here. One of them is, do you want to emit light? Do you want to see it? Like, do you want it to affect other things or only be visible as a light material? So you can change this from here if you want to. Also, you can add an image or you can add a map for the color to replace the color here with an image or any other map. You can also add some opacity, which means basically we can use this material for other objects that are that will give us artificial lighting. So for example here, if I go to camera 2, you will see that I have a TV. So if I want to make this TV appears as if it's on, what I need to do is I need to create a light material. So again, right click, materials, Corona, and then Corona light material. Now for this material, I'm not going to change the color. No, I'm going to replace it with a map. So let me just zoom out and move this to the side so it can work freely. So basically I will right click, go to maps, Corona, and then Corona bitmap. It will open this window where I'll go and select my image. I think I've saved an image here. Okay, so let's say I'll select this one. Now I will link this image to color. And as you can see, it will give me something like this. Okay, let me just show you how it will look in the render. So now if I select this TV, this is not a group. This is an editable poly. So I have to go to polygon and select the polygon for the screen and then select the light and assign it. And as you can see, it appears in the render. Now, if I want the lighting to be more, I'm going to increase the intensity. So it will appear something like this. So you can control it as you wish until you reach a realistic effect. Okay. So another thing that you can do here, you can add opacity. So let's say I'm going to create plane and I'm going to add this plane, let's say somewhere here. I'll open AutoGrid so I can draw it directly here. Okay. Now let's see, this plane is a projector. Okay, I need to add projector. Now projectors are basically similar to TVs, but the difference is in projector we have opacity. It's not like the TV, it's not a sheet with lighting behind it. The lighting is coming from the projector to the wall. So basically any dark spots will appear clear. Okay, it will have opacity in it. So how to do this? I'm going to create the same material. So right click, materials, Corona, Corona light material. And then I'm going to change the name here to projector so I'm not confused. Then I'll not change the color. I'll go and add map to the color. I'll add the same map to the color. Okay, let me just keep this here in between so you can see it. You can add a new one with the same image, that's fine. But since I already have it, I'll connect it to this one as well. So this is basically what I have right now. I just have this image. If I add the same image to opacity, it will be something like this. Now this is not showing properly because I don't have enough intensity. So if I increase the intensity, it will start showing the image as if it's a projected image. So I'll just increase it more. So this is the result that we have. It's basically similar to a projector. Okay, we have many other options here that you can discover yourself. These are like interesting to learn, so make sure to go through them whenever you have enough time. Okay, so this is basically lighting. Now the other thing or the last material that we're going to cover is the Corona Slicer material. Let me just open the viewport again. Okay, and I'll go to the top view and I will create a box and I'm going to cover the whole building with this box. Okay. On this box, I'm going to create a material and add it to this one. So right click, materials, Corona. This time I'm going to use Corona Slicer material. For this material, the Corona Slicer, I will drag it and drop it on this box. So as you can see, it made the box disappear. Let me just close this. It made the box disappear and the building with it, because this is a material that will slice any object that you have. Okay, so as you can see now, it's not showing anything. Let's say I will move it up 1500. It will give me this result. Okay, so I can consider this one. If I click here, I can consider it an isometric, for example. If I click on T for the top view and Z, it will give me a plan, a render for a plan. Okay, so this is a top view or a plan because it's cut here. And the color that you see, this pink color, is because the box itself is pink. So if you want to change it to white, you can just select white and it will appear this way. Or if you want, you can change it to black and it will look something like this. The same thing goes if I want to render a section. I can move this box down to cover the whole building, and then I can move it inside depending on what I want, or outside depending on the side that you want to show. So let's say I want it from this way, and then I'll go to the front view and zoom in. So now I have my section. Okay, so it's a very interesting tool that you can use, or very interesting material that you can use. Just make sure that you're always in an orthographic view. If I'm in perspective, even if I'm in the front view, it will still look like a 3D. This is not a section. So if you're cutting a section through a building, you need to make, or even for the top view, if you're rendering the plan, you need to make sure that you are in orthographic mode, not in perspective. So top, bottom, front, back, left, right, and orthographic, these are all fine, but the perspective one will be wrong. I hope that this video explains everything that you need to know about materials. I'll just go through all of this again through the presentation just to make sure that you understand where you can find all the information. Now, this is the presentation. This slide is for materials. If you go down, it's explain what a material is, and then how to show the materials in the scene if in case you have any issues with that. Then when you open the material editor, we have two types, and as we said, we're going to work with the Slate material editor. These are the names of all the things that we have here. And then, as we said, we can create materials from scratch or by using a preset or using Corona material library or external blocks. Okay. And in the scratch part, we're not explaining everything. We're only explaining the color and the bitmap, how to add a bitmap. And I've explained in this video the color correct, but it's not included in here. It's not part of the course. Then for the preset, we can use any of the ready presets that we have. And to apply a material, how you can add it to an object. And then how to use the Corona material library, using UVW map for any material with an image in it, And if you're bringing external blocks, as we said, you can use this tool to pick the material from the object, and then you can apply it or you can change it depending on what you want. In this slide, you can find that we have external material libraries where you can click on this arrow here in the material map browser and open an existing material library if you have it. But we're going to go through all of this in details in the upcoming semester. For the material or the Corona Light material, you can use it to create or lights from any object that you have. You can change the color, you can change the texture map, or you can add an image to it basically. And you can change the intensity for the power of the light. And again, this is a link to help you understand all these other settings. The last thing we've talked about is the Corona Slicer material, where you can slice your object wherever you want, and it might be used just to slice an object or to create renders for top views, front views, and so on. Now, the last thing I'm going to show you is if you have any missing files, how you can fix it. So basically, if you bring any blocks into your scene, let me just stop this. If you have any blocks that you brought into your scene, but the images or the materials are not linked with your file, what you can do is you can go to customize and then you can go to configure project paths, external files, add, select the folder where you have everything, click on add subpaths, and then use path. Click on OK. OK, and it will add all the images or all the materials that are in that folder. So when you add your block, you will not have any missing materials. That's it. I hope the video is explaining everything, and if you have any questions, please let me know so we can discuss it in the upcoming lecture. Thank you for attending, and I wish you all the best.